never forget the smell. Metallic, antiseptic, and something else. Something sickly sweet. It clung to the air in Dr. Albright's clinic, a place I now realize was less about healing and more about creation. I went to him for chronic migraines, desperate for relief. He promised a revolutionary new treatment, a bioneural implant. Sounded cutting edge, right? He had this unnerving intensity, his eyes gleaming like he discovered some forbidden secret. The procedure itself was a blur. I remember the prick of the local anesthetic then. Nothing. I woke up in a recovery room, disoriented and with a throbbing headache worse than any I'd ever experienced. A bandage covered the back of my neck. I tried to sit up, but my body felt heavy, sluggish. When I touched the bandage, I felt something hard, metallic beneath it. Panic began to claw its way up my throat. Where was Dr. Albright? Where were the nurses? I managed to swing my legs over the side of the bed. The floor was cold against my bare feet. I stumbled towards the door, my head swimming. As I reached for the handle, I caught my reflection in the metallic surface. My eyes, they were different, dilated, almost black, and my skin, it had a grayish tinge. I looked wrong, like something was growing beneath the surface. The throbbing in my head intensified, morphing into sharp, stabbing pains. I felt alien. I fumbled with the door handle, my hands trembling. It swung open, revealing a long, dimly lit corridor. The same metallic, sickly sweet smell hung heavy in the air. At the end of the hallway, I saw a figure, Dr. Albright. He was hunched over something, his back to me. He seemed to be working. I called out to him, but my voice was weak, raspy. He didn't turn around. He just kept working, his movements jerky and unnatural. A wave of nausea washed over me. I had to get out of there. I stumbled down the corridor, my legs feeling like lead. The walls were lined with closed doors, each one radiating an aura of chilling secrecy. The closer I got to Dr. Albright, the more intense the metallic smell became. It was mixed with something else now, something putrid. I could hear a low, rhythmic humming coming from where he was working, a humming that resonated deep within my bones, making my teeth ache. Finally, I reached him. He was hunched over a surgical table, but it wasn't a person he was working on. It was a collection of body parts. Limbs, organs, wires, and tubes, all intertwined and pulsating with a sickly green light. The humming was coming from this grotesque amalgamation. Dr. Albright turned to me, a twisted smile spreading across his face. His eyes, once filled with intensity, were now vacant, hollow. "My masterpiece," he whispered, his voice raspy and inhuman. I stared at the monstrosity on the table, my stomach churning. It twitched and spasmed, its movements unnatural and disturbing. I looked at Dr. Albright, at his hollow eyes and grotesque smile, and a horrifying realization dawned on me. He wasn't just a doctor, he was a monster, and I was his next creation. He reached out and grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. His touch sent a jolt of pain through my body, a pain that resonated with the throbbing in my head. "Don't struggle," he hissed, his voice a chilling whisper. "It's time for you to become complete." I tried to pull away, but my limbs felt heavy, unresponsive. The humming from the creature on the table intensified, and the throbbing in my head became unbearable. I felt like my skull was about to split open. He dragged me towards the table, his smile widening. I could see the creature's pulsating flesh, its mismatched limbs twitching, reaching out towards me. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the humming, by the throbbing in my head, by the horrifying realization of what was about to happen. He strapped me down, his touch cold and clammy. I thrashed against the restraints, but it was no use. I was trapped. He picked up a scalpel, the metal gleaming under the sickly green light. "Just a small incision," he whispered, echoing his words from before. But this time I knew the truth. This wasn't about healing. This was about transformation. The scalpel pressed against my skin, cold and sharp. The humming reached a crescendo, and the throbbing in my head exploded into a blinding white pain. Then, darkness. I woke up, different. The throbbing was gone, replaced by a dull ache. I could feel things, connections, a network of wires and tubes coursing through my body, pulsing with a sickly green light. I looked down at my hands. They were changing. The skin was turning gray, the flesh hardening. I looked up and saw myself in a reflection, a distorted, monstrous reflection in a polished metal surface. My eyes were black, vacant. My skin was gray, metallic. I was part of his masterpiece, masterpiece number 6. And then I heard it, the humming. It wasn't coming from the table anymore. It was coming from me, and I knew what I had to do. I had to find masterpiece number 7. I'll never forget the metallic tang of fear in the air that night. The alarms, a shrill, relentless scream, tore through the otherwise sterile quiet of the quarantine ward. We were so sure, so damn sure we had it contained. Patient Zero. They called him that, reducing a man, a monster, to a clinical term. He was unlike anything we'd ever seen, ravaged by something other. And he was gone, vanished from a locked room, sealed tighter than a drum. Dr. Ramirez, our lead virologist, was the first to break the stunned silence. His voice, usually so steady, trembled as he barked orders, his face pale and drawn. Lockdown procedures initiated. Seal off the wing. Nobody in, nobody out. But we all knew deep down that it was probably too late. We'd seen what Patient Zero could do. The speed, the ferocity. It was inhuman. And now he was loose in the very building designed to contain him. The thought sent a shiver crawling down my spine. The next hour was a blur of frantic activity. We barricaded doors, donned hazmat suits, and armed ourselves with whatever we could find: scalpels, syringes, even a fire extinguisher. The air crackled with tension, thick and suffocating. Every shadow seemed to writhe. Every creak of the building set our teeth on edge. We were trapped in a nightmare, playing a deadly game of hide-and-seek with a creature we barely understood. We split into teams, sweeping the deserted corridors, our flashlights cutting through the thick fog. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the rasp of our own breath inside the hazmat suits and the distant echo of the alarms. Each step felt heavy, each breath a struggle. We were walking through a tomb, waiting for the dead to rise. My heart pounded against my ribs, a drumbeat of dread. What if he was already behind us? What if he was waiting just around the next corner? We found Dr. Chen first, or what was left of him. The sight still haunts my nightmares. His hazmat suit was shredded, his body contorted. It looked like he'd been twisted, broken like a discarded toy. The metallic scent of blood was overwhelming. I vomited, the acidic bile burning my throat. We were dealing with something beyond our comprehension, something that defied the laws of nature and medicine. This wasn't just a virus. This was something evil. The screams started shortly after. High-pitched, desperate cries that echoed through the corridors, quickly cut short. Each scream was a chilling reminder of our dwindling numbers, our growing vulnerability. We were being picked off, one by one. The hunter had become the hunted. I clutched the scalpel tighter, my hands slick with sweat. My breath hitched in my throat, fear choking me. We had to find a way out. We had to escape this nightmare before it consumed us all. We found a service elevator, a rusted metal box hidden behind a stack of crates. It was our only hope. Ramirez punched the button repeatedly, his face a mask of desperation. The doors creaked open, revealing a dimly lit shaft. It was a risky move, but we were out of options. We piled inside, the metal groaning under our weight. As the doors slammed shut, plunging us into darkness, I knew we were either descending to safety or into the belly of the beast. The descent was agonizingly slow. The elevator shuddered and groaned, threatening to plunge us into the darkness below. The silence was broken only by the rhythmic clang of metal against metal, each clang echoing the beat of my racing heart. I could hear Ramirez's ragged breathing beside me, feel the tremor in his hand as he gripped his flashlight. We were trapped, suspended between hope and despair. The elevator lurched to a halt, throwing us against the cold metal walls. The doors creaked open, revealing a dimly lit basement corridor. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood, stronger than ever. We stepped out cautiously, our flashlights cutting through the gloom. The silence was unnerving, too quiet. It felt like we were walking into a trap. A guttural growl ripped through the silence, echoing from the shadows. We spun around, our flashlights darting back and forth, searching for the source of the sound. Then we saw it, a figure lurking in the darkness, its eyes glowing with an unnatural light. It was Patient Zero, but he was different, larger, more monstrous. The virus had transformed him into something inhuman. Patient Zero lunged, a blur of movement. We scattered, our flashlights casting wild shadows on the walls. The scalpel felt useless in my hand. We were no match for this creature. Ramirez screamed as patient Zero tackled him to the ground. The sickening crunch of bone echoed through the corridor. I closed my eyes, unable to watch. We were doomed. I ran. I didn't look back. I just ran blindly, desperately through the maze of corridors, my lungs burning, my heart pounding. The screams of my colleagues echoed in my ears, a symphony of horror. I stumbled, fell, picked myself up, and kept running. I had to survive. I had to warn the others. I finally reached the exit, bursting out into the cold night air. I gasped for breath, my body trembling with exhaustion and fear. I looked back at the hospital, a dark, looming silhouette against the night sky. A silent tomb. I was the only survivor. As I stumbled away, the sirens wailing in the distance, I felt a sharp pain in my arm. I looked down and saw a small, red welt. A bite mark. The same kind of bite mark we'd seen on patient Zero. My blood ran cold. The metallic tang of fear returned, stronger than ever. I knew then. I wasn't escaping the nightmare. I was carrying it with me. I was patient one. I swear I'll never forget the smell. That metallic tang of blood, mixed with the cloying sweetness of decay. It clung to the back of my throat, even weeks after I left that godforsaken place. See, I was part of a demolition crew tasked with tearing down the old county hospital. It had been abandoned for years, rumored to be haunted, you know, the kind of stories. We all laughed it off, of course. We were there to do a job, not swap ghost stories. But then we found the morgue. The door creaked open, the sound amplified by the silence of the deserted hospital wing. Inside, rows of empty stainless steel tables gleamed under the single, flickering bulb. It was colder in here, a stark contrast to the humid summer day outside. But it wasn't the emptiness that chilled me, it was the feeling of presence, like someone or something was watching us from the shadows. My partner, Mark, a big, burly guy who never flinched at anything, was the first to speak. "Place gives me the creeps," he muttered, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. I had to agree. The air was thick with a palpable sense of dread. It was like the silence itself was screaming. We started our work, the metallic clang of our tools echoing through the empty space. We tried to ignore the oppressive atmosphere, focusing on the task at hand. But it was hard. Every shadow seemed to shift, every creak of the building sounded like footsteps approaching. That's when we found it. Tucked away in the furthest corner, behind a stack of discarded gurneys, was a refrigerated drawer. It wasn't empty. My heart hammered against my ribs as Mark reached for the handle. "Don't," I whispered, but it was too late. He pulled the drawer open with a groan of protesting metal. The stench hit us like a physical blow. Inside, wrapped in a stained sheet, lay a body. The skin was a sickly gray, stretched taut over bone. The eyes were gone, leaving dark, empty sockets that seemed to stare right through us. But it was the hand that truly horrified me. One skeletal finger pointed directly at me, as if accusing. We stumbled back, gasping for air, a primal fear gripping us. Mark was white as a sheet, mumbling something about getting out of there. As we turned to flee, I heard a faint rustling sound from inside the drawer. I couldn't stop myself from looking back. The sheet was moving, slowly, deliberately, as if something underneath was stirring. I screamed. Mark grabbed my arm and dragged me out of that cursed morgue, leaving the drawer and its occupant behind. We never went back. The hospital was demolished a few weeks later, the morgue and its secrets buried under tons of rubble. But sometimes, late at night, I still smell that metallic tang of blood and decay, and I see that skeletal finger pointing, accusing. I can't escape the feeling that something followed us out of that abandoned morgue. Something still watching.